And so without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I hand you over to Mr. Stephen Hobbs and the Thesiad.
Thank you very much. I had hoped to bring you this from Epidaurus, but the patriot in me said that I should really go for the staycation. So instead of Epidaurus, you've got Havisham on ooze. So it's probably more epidural than Epidaurus, so my apologies there. But the Thesiad is here. Sing to me, muse of Theseus, king of the Athenians. Send me a Homer, not a Hobbes. Now, anything can happen in the next 60 minutes. So switch off your mobile phones. Switch off your mobile phones and free your imaginations. But I should warn you that there is conflict and ambition. Dysfunctional families, irresponsible drinking, inappropriate sexual behavior, cheap humor, and flashing lights. It is a story of men and women and gods. Now, the men have names that end in eos or us or os or ease. So you will meet Theseus, Pythias, Aegeus, Minos, Heracles, Lycomedes, and Stephanos. And the women's names are softer. They end in vowels. So you will meet Aethra, Medea, Ariadne, and Pasiphae. Now the men are heroic, but lustful and fickle. And the women are heroic, but long-suffering. And they are gods. Let us not forget the gods. The gods are, and I hesitate to say this, they are spiteful, interfering, and always up for some god on human action. And there are thousands of gods in the Greek world, but the most important are Zeus, top god, his brother Poseidon, lord of the seas, and his other brother Hades, lord of the underworld. Together, these three brothers are the Mitchell brothers of the Eastern Mediterranean. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to East Med Enders. It begins with a prophecy. Do not open. No, it does not begin with a prophecy. It does not. It begins much earlier than that. It begins with a king, King Pythias of Troezen. Probably not a state you would have heard of before, but you would have heard of the cities that surround Troezen. Corinth, mighty Mycenae, proud Sparta, and upstart Athens. So if they have a disagreement with their enemies, then they have to go through Troezen. So Troezen's position is powerful and very dangerous. And Pythias has expended much treasure in developing that power. And the greatest treasure he has expended is his sons. But one by one they have died. And all he has left is a single daughter, Aethra. I wonder if I could marry her to a king of another city. But they are not interested. What is Troezen to them? And I can go to the market and buy a woman. But Athens is interested. Now, Athens has a new king, a king who does things differently, a king who is much loved by his people, King Aegeus of Athens. And he is flattered that a king so venerable and wise as Pythias should show him any interest. So Pythias goes to his treasury and uses what is left to develop that friendship. And soon Pythias and Aegeus are brother kings together. And they do what brother kings do in the ancient Greek world. They drink red wine, they go on boar hunts, and they visit oracles. My good friend Aegeus, I have found an oracle. Local, surprisingly accurate. Oracle advisor, 5 stars. Now, anybody who lives in ancient Greece knows that any oracle worth an olive is Delphi. But Delphi is very expensive, beyond the reach of Pythias. My lord, we shall go to a local. And Pythias goes to his treasury, and in the corner there is a single tripod left, an iron tripod. He goes to his depleted farms. There's very little left, but there is a small black and white goat with a pretty little face. Come, my friend, we shall go to the oracle, and just the 2 of them, brother king to brother king. No armed guards, no retainers, no advisors. This is how Pythias wants it. They set off to the oracle. When they arrive at the oracle, the door is shut. Pythias bangs on the door. Hello? 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 He hears the bolts being drawn, and slowly the door creaks open. An old crone looks out. Her long red hair is streaked with white. She is ancient. She is 42 or 43 winters old. Didn't you see the sign? There is indeed a sign. Oracles are us, open Monday to Saturday, Helios Day by appointment only. Today is Helios Day. Do you have an appointment? An appointment, madam? I am King Pythias of Troezen. And this gentleman here, this gentleman is King Aegeus of Athens. No, we do not have an appointment. Do you have gifts for the goddess? We do. Is that a tripod I see there? Is it gold? Is it silver? Is it bronze? It's not iron, is it? It is, dear lady, an iron. And you have a sacrifice for the goddess? A white bullock, perhaps? A white sow? A white goat? A black and white goat, dear lady, with a pretty little face. Very well, she says. Wait here. Wait here. Now, wait is not a word the king wants to hear. And Pythias is a little embarrassed for his friend. What to do? I spy with my little eye, Aegeus, something beginning with delta. Come, come. They're being summoned to the oracle. They bend their heads and go in, and the air is filled with incense, and slowly they can see their way. In front of them there is an altar, and on the altar is the iron tripod, and next to it, the little black and white goat, the one with a pretty little face, its throat cut and its belly ripped. And next to it, the priestess, an old crone. Her long red hair is streaked with white. She is ancient. She is 42 or 43 winters old at the very least. She beckons them forward. Thank you for holding. Your call is important to us. La 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 la. Thank you for continuing to hold. Your call is important to us. La 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 la. Do not loosen the empty mouth of the wineskin until you have reached the heights of Athens, lest you die of grief. Pythias is a little perplexed. Madam, could you repeat that, please, or perhaps write it down? Repeat it? Write it down? The goddess does not repeat or write it down. Go on, get out of my oracle. Get out of my oracle. Go on, get out of my oracle. Pythias and Aegeus get out of the oracle, and they walk back to Troezen. Well, it's perfectly straightforward to me, says Aegeus. Do not open the mouth of the wineskin until you have reached the heights of Athens, lest you die of grief. It's about responsible drinking, isn't it? No, no, my lord, it is not. It is. That's exactly what it is about. No, my lord. Oracles are notorious for being ambiguous. The wineskin is probably a metaphor for something else. But next time you visit, we shall go to Delphi for a second opinion. But tonight, my lord, it's your last night in Troyzen. So there'll be much celebrations. And there is much celebrations. There's wonderful food, and the mouthpiece of the wineskins are opened. And Aegeus is pleased to indulge. He's got to go back to Athens tomorrow. He enjoys being king, but the paperwork will be piling up. And why not have a drink? He's still on his holidays. And, he has a cup or two. Which god shall I be tonight, Pythias? No, no, my lord, you must not be a god. That is impious. No, I shall be a god tonight. I shall be the god Dionysus. Yes, that is not impious. The god of wine, the god of theatre, the god of intoxication. I raise my glass to him. And Pythias, I need to tell you this. I love you, Pythias. Funny name, though, Pythias, because to be honest, I'm feeling a bit Pythias myself. My lord, says Pythias, time to retire. Let me take you to your chambers. And he sees Aegeus to his rooms, and then he goes and speaks to his daughter Aethra, and she nods her head and joins Aegeus in his chambers. The next morning, things were a little awkward around the breakfast table, but Aegeus is quite happy. Last night, he said, I was visited by a god. It was Hephaestus. I heard his hammers inside my very head. But then, you would not believe this, but then a nymph came to me in the night. And you will not, well, I will not say what happened, but she came to me and I forgot all about Hephaestus. My lord, says Pythias, that nymph was my daughter Aethra. Your daughter? Oh, did I mention I've got a wife back in Athens? There's always a wife back in Athens. Oh, my dear, you place me in a difficult. I tell you what, Pythias. If my seed is fruitful, and it's a boy, send him to me in Athens, and I will acknowledge him as my firstborn son, and he will be my heir. But being a king, he will need to be strong. So my sword and my sandals, I will put them in a deep hole under that boulder over there. So when he is strong enough to lift that up, explain things to him and send him to me in Athens with these tokens that I may recognize him and acknowledge him. I can't say fairer than that. Pythias is a little disappointed, but what can he do? He will not mark his friend down, and it could have gone a great deal worse. So they wave Aegeus off to Athens, and well, Aegeus's fruit was fruitful, and Aethra's belly grows large. People notice this in a palace. So Pythias lets it be known that the god Poseidon visited Troyzen recently and honored his daughter. That explains that. The people are satisfied with that. Oh, the god Poseidon himself. Oh, what an honor. Thank goodness for that. There was us thinking she was a bit of a slag, but she's been honored by the gods. Excellent. And in the fullness of time, a child is born, but it's a miserable, motionless male. 5.5 pounds, hardly expected to survive the night. They call him Theseus so that he may not die unnamed. And Aethra picks up her son and puts him to her breast. Come, my Theseus. He survives through his mother's love, but he is always small. And when the palace children run around, the runt is always Theseus. He is the smallest of them all. And Pythias looks down and thinks, well, that was his last throw of the dice. He has a son for Aegeus, but he's never going to lift that boulder. And if he's never going to be strong, well, he will not bear the weights of Troyzen. But Pythias did his best. For Theseus' mother, Aethra, she's pleased. Her little son will stay at home. He will not yearn to hear his name sung by the campfires. She will have him, with her, for a long time. And she's happy with that. But one day a kinsman visits their kinsman Heracles. That Heracles. Been there, killed that, got the lion skin, 12 labours, the greatest hero in ancient Greece. If you want to be a hero, you have to be as good as Heracles. You've killed a dragon. How many heads has he got? Just the one. He needs to have at least 3 heads. That Heracles. And he is wearing the headdress of the Nemean lion. The lion which was the greatest lion of the ancient world. So great, it could not be killed by any instrument made by man. But Heracles kills it with his bare hands. He takes the headdress off and puts it down. And all the children of the palace run away from fear, apart from one little chap who runs to the fire and picks up an iron bar and proceeds to attack it. It's little Theseus. Heracles has to pick him up. Good fellow, my fellow, he says. My Nemean lion has died once. He does not need to die twice. Come, come, come. But I admire your stout heart. You are a little on the small side, but you can do something about that. A small man can topple a mighty one. And those muscles, come, I will show you some moves. And outside, let us go. Pick up a stone and lift it. And the next day, pick up a bigger stone and lift that. In no time at all, you'll be lifting that big boulder over there. The one that everybody keeps tripping over, that one there. Well, Theseus cannot believe his luck. The greatest hero in the Greek world, Heracles, has come and to give him advice. Wonderful. Now, each day he practices his movements. He knows how to throw people. And each day he goes out and he picks up a stone. Look at me, mother. Look at me and my muscles. And the next day, a bigger stone. And the day after that, a bigger stone. And the days turn into weeks. And the weeks turn into months. And the months turn into years. And soon, he is able to lift that big boulder in the corner of the courtyard that everyone keeps tripping over. And underneath, he finds a sword and a pair of sandals. Grandfather, look what I found. I've been meaning to have a word with you about that, says Pythias. Now, remember I told you about your godfather, Poseidon? Well, you also have an earth father. Now, his name is King Aegeus of Athens. He left these for you. So all you have to do is take these tokens to him in Athens, and he will honor you and proclaim you his firstborn son. You will be the next king of Athens. Oh, hurrah, grandfather, hurrah. Can we go straight away? Not straight away. Tomorrow, I will take you down to the harbor, and Athens is but a day's journey across the wine-dark sea. We shall go. But grandfather, I would like to go on my own, and if you don't mind, I would like to go by the land route, because I want to follow in the footsteps of my kinsman Heracles. So it is agreed that Theseus will make his way by land. All he has is his clothes and a sack with the sword in, and the sandals, a little food, and a few coins in his purse. Pythias waves him off. Will he succeed? He seems so small, though he has put on some muscles in the last couple of years, but he is still smaller than anyone else. Too small to be a king, too small to save Troyzen. Well, Pythias has done his best. Pythias will not see Theseus again. But what of Theseus' mother, Aethra? There are tears in her eyes as she sees her son off. She had hoped to keep him at home, but she realizes that now he has indeed begun to hear his name sung in the songs by the campfires. She waves him off, her eyes wet with tears. She will see him again, or will she not? The gods have more in store for her, and she has not shed nearly enough tears. And Theseus, well, the sky is great. He has never been out by himself before, and soon the familiarity of Troyes is behind, and there is no one to tell him to turn left and turn right. So he keeps walking in a straight line. It seems easiest way. But night falls, and ahead he sees a campfire. He needs to walk towards that, not for warmth, but for safety. There are wolves here about, and a campfire offers sanctuary. He goes closer into the campfire, and he sees that it's surrounded by 20 or 30 people. There is somebody standing up in the middle who is genial and smiling with white whiskers and white hair. He's dressed in strange garb. He's playing a lyre, and he appears to be telling a story at the same time. Theseus moves closer to hear what the man is saying. And the storyteller says, and then, dear friends, and then I pulled out my red hot poker, and everybody starts laughing. They all laugh and cheer, and the storyteller bows to them. My good friends, he says, thank you, but I notice there is a stranger in our midst. Come forward into the firelight, stranger, and announce yourself. My name is Theseus of Troyes, and I'm bound for Athens. You're bound for Athens, and you need to go back to the harbour, and then Athens is but a day's journey across the wine dark sea. This is the long route. I know, but I wish to walk this way. Then come forward, and there is place for you at the fire. Ukulele, scooch up, and Malpas, fetch our visitor a bowl of goat soup. And Theseus sits down. You are most welcome, Theseus of Troyes. My name is the Tale Teller, and me and a few friends of mine, we are going on a great pilgrimage to the oracle at Delapre. And on the way, we are telling each other stories. Perhaps you have a story. I do indeed have a story. May I tell it now? I will introduce you. Ladies and gentlemen, Theseus of Troyes. Theseus stands up, and he's emboldened by these wonderful people and the firelight. And thank you. I have a story I wish to share with you. It is the story of my kinsman, Heracles. They start laughing. My kinsman, Heracles, the Nemean lion, the 12 labours, the greatest hero in ancient Greece. And soon all the figures around the campfire are laughing. Theseus cannot understand. The tale teller puts his hand on his shoulder. My friend, there is not a person here who does not have a kinsman called Heracles. And we have heard all of the tall tales, but what we would like from you is a story of your own. Do you have such a story? No, then no worry. When you have a story of your own, we would love to hear it. But in order to pay for your supper, perhaps you will tend the fire tonight so that we are not devoured by wolves as we sleep. And I will replace you at midnight. Theseus agrees, and he tends the fire. And he listens to the conversations that are happening around him. And one by one, the conversation ceases until there is but one conversation. The conversation between the fire and himself. He is beginning to think of his own story, but his eyelids grow heavy and he falls asleep. But a moment later, there's a hand on his shoulder. It is the tale teller. The tale teller sits down. My friend, he says, tomorrow we go west and you go east. But I have been talking to my friends, and where you are going is a wild and lawless place. They tell me fantastical tales of the horrors that await you on that route. Someone talks of a man who pretends to limp, and he has a club which he kills people with. And a ukulele tells a story of a man who sits by the side of the road inviting strangers to wash his feet, and then he kicks them down to the bottom of a hill, and out of a bush comes a giant hedgehog. Now, Ukulele is much given to exaggeration. I do not know whether that one is true, but somebody else tells of a man who ties people to both sides of a tree and splits them in half. And there is another man, and there's even someone who stands in the path in front of you, challenging you to a wrestling match and killing you for no reason at all. That is the way he sees life. Now, these are storytellers prone to exaggeration, but even if some of these are true, where you are going is a dangerous place. Tomorrow you must take great care. Your path is stony. There are serpents in the grass, and everywhere you look, there is goat shit. So my advice to you tomorrow is stay alert, watch your step, and save lives. But you have earned your sleep, my friend. Enjoy. Theseus lies down to sleep, but he can't sleep. There is still that conversation with the fire about his story, and he begins to think how he may approach this. And his eyelids grow heavy, and he does indeed fall asleep. And it is Helios, the sun himself, who wakes up Theseus the next morning. The camp is strangely quiet. He looks around. Hello? 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 They've all gone. But next to his bed there is a loaf of bread and a handful of olives. And the bread is wonderful, and he breaks this, and the olives are the juiciest ever. And Athens is a day's journey away. The next time he eats bread and olives will be in Athens, and the road to Athens beckons. So he sets out. Shortly along the road, he sees a man hobbling along, obviously in great difficulty, with what appears to be a club under his shoulder. Theseus hails him. Traveller, he says, my name is Theseus of Troyes, and I'm going to Athens. May I walk a while with you? The man looks round. Theseus of Troyes? Athens? You need to go back to the harbour. Athens is but a day's journey across the wine dark sea. This is the long way round. Indeed, but I'm taking the long way round. May I walk with? It would be nice for some company, come, but forgive my leg. It's an old war wound, a Persian spear. And as he walks along, Theseus remembers the tale-teller's words. Stay alert, watch your step, save lives. And as he looks down, he sees the shadow of a club on the ground. He turns to one side quickly, and the club hits the ground and falls out of the man's hand. Theseus quickly grabs it and jabs back, and then turns around and strikes the man on the forehead, dead straight away. He falls to the ground, and Theseus looks at a man. He has never killed a man before. There is a roaring in his head, and in his mouth there is the taste of iron, and he sees the light fading from the man's eyes. Theseus bends down. And now you are in my story. But the road to Athens beckons. And shortly later he finds an even older man sitting by the side of the road with his feet in a bowl of water. The man calls him. Where are you from? My name is Theseus of Troyes, and I'm going to Athens. Athens? You need to go back down to the harbour. Athens is but a day's journey across the wine dark sea. This is the long way round. Indeed, but I am going this way. May I help you? You may. My feet are aching, and please come and wash my feet. Of course, my friend. But where I come from, this is a strange custom. I have never seen this done before. Will you show me exactly how to do it? I would not wish to do it wrongly. I will show you. Sit down, you fool. Put your feet in here, and I will wash it. And this is what you do. And as Theseus is doing that, he kicks him down the hill. The man rolls in, and he ends up in a big bush. And out of this bush, there comes a giant hedgehog, which devours the man. The bush shakes. Theseus is perplexed. But the road to Athens beckons, calling him on and on. And there is indeed 5 more challenges to him, each one exactly as the tale-teller told him. They were not lying, it was true. There are brigands and there are kings of thieves. and men who will wish ill fortune on everyone. And the day turns into several days, and finally the road to Athens is clear. It's evening and it's getting dark, but ahead, oh no, ahead on the path he sees the silhouette of a giant man. He moves to him. He calls out, "My name is Theseus of Troezen, and I am bound for Athens." "Well, Theseus of Troezen, they call me the wrestler. If you wish to go to Athens, well, you'll have to wrestle me. If you defeat me, well, the road to Athens awaits you. But if I defeat you, well, the people of Athens won't have to try and remember your name." What was it again? Theseus of Troezen. "Come closer, come." Theseus moves forward. He drops the sack, and in his ear he hears the words of Heracles. "A small man may topple a giant one." To the wrestler, this Theseus of Troezen is the same as hundreds of other young men who come along this route. They fancy themselves, but no, they are no challenge to him. He will toy with him a while, and then, well, he will snap his neck like that. That's the sound he likes. So he reaches out a hand lazily towards Theseus. But Theseus is gone. And Theseus is here and there and front and back. Wrestling Theseus is like wrestling a giant eel. He cannot be held. He cannot be gripped. He cannot be thrown. He cannot be hurt. And in no time at all, the wrestler, he sees the ground coming towards him at great speed. And then he hears that sound he loves above all others, this time it's his own spine. And Theseus turns him around and looks at his eyes. And there's such a roaring in his head, and his mouth is filled with the taste of iron. And he sees the light going from the wrestler. And now he says, "You are in my story." Theseus spends the night leaning against a tree next to the body of the wrestler. He doesn't light a fire. He's not afraid of the wolves. "Let them come, I will kill them all." In the morning, the sun awakes him, and the body of the wrestler has been dragged away to be devoured. But the road to Athens calls, and Theseus is on his feet and moving fast. He's hungry, but now Athens is there. He can smell Athens. He can smell the sea, the fish, the human sweat, and soon he can hear it, the giant oxen carts, the sound of hammer on iron and stone. And then he is in the great marketplace itself. There's a roar in his ears. And if Troezen is 1, then Athens is 1,000. But slowly, the individual calls of the market traders come to him. "Rat on a stick! Rat on a stick! Get your gums on me plums! Get your gums on me plums!" And those poor people who have nothing to sell but themselves. "Twopence a tickle! Twopence a tickle!" Theseus is afraid. He is alone in such a big place. He puts on the sword. He clips it onto his belt to give himself a feeling of bravery, but still he feels that he is one amongst 10,000 people. But he is being watched and listened. Theseus is in the city of Athens. It is Aegeus' city. It is also the city of Aegeus' wife, the lady Medea. Some call her the sorceress, but in truth, she is a very good organizer. She knows that a crown is a difficult thing to hold on to. Her husband has a brother called Pallas who has 50 sons. Now Pallas thinks he would make a better king, and he has sons to spare. But Aegeus and Medea, they have but one son, a 6-year-old boy, And as everyone knows, a 6-year-old boy can be swatted away as quickly and as easily as a man may swat away a fly. So she has to be careful. And she has eyes and ears about the city. They are the poor people who have nothing else to do. And they listen and they watch and they come to her in the palace. Lady, they said, lady, I've seen this, I have heard that. And in return, she gives them a small coin. Lady, there are stories coming in from the country about a club man who has killed hundreds of people, who has killed himself by a small man, not even half his size. And a man who ties people to trees and splits them in half was himself split in half by a young country boy, half his age. And have you heard the story about the giant hedgehog? Well, this man, the story is that this young man from the country is responsible. And that wrestler who terrorizes the neighborhood, he is no more. He is a giant of a man. He has been killed by somebody a third of his size. And Medea listens to all these stories. Lady, I have seen that man in the marketplace. He calls himself Theseus of Troyzen. And lady, I had too have seen that man. He's in the marketplace at this very moment. He wears a sword. It is not the sword of a country bumpkin. It is the sword of a warrior. And another poor person twitches the lady's dress. My lady, she said, I went close and I touched that sword. On that sword there is a silver owl. And Medea gathers all these threads in, wonders what they mean. A silver owl is the sacred bird of Athens on a weapon. She thinks she knows what this means. But she cannot do anything about this, but she must protect herself. She cannot swat this fly away. She cannot kill this person. She is not the king. So she goes to her husband, Aegeus. There's a young man on the marketplace. I think he is one of the sons of Pallas. He's looking to cause trouble. He's pretending to be somebody called Theseus of Troyzen. But I think we need to deal with this straight away. Why don't you go and welcome him? Give him a cup of wine in which I will put a sleeping draught. Then we can return him to his father, Pallas, with no trouble. Otherwise, if he stays there, blood will be spilt. Aegeus agrees, come, point him out to me. And Aegeus goes to the marketplace, and there is Theseus of Troyzen. And Aegeus hails him, Theseus of Troyzen, welcome to Athens. I'm King Aegeus. You must have had a long journey. Come, some refreshment for you, sir. He hands him a cup. Theseus cannot believe his luck. Here is his father. Come to him. He has acknowledged him in the marketplace. He had expected to go to the palace and stand in line like everyone else. This is wonderful. He greedily takes the cup and bends to drink. But in that moment, Aegeus sees Theseus' sword. It is his own sword, and he realizes that this is his son. He snatches the cup away, and the draught falls onto the floor. It hisses and writhes. This is not a sleeping draught. This is aconite. This is something of permanent sleep. And the two men embrace, and in each other's eyes they recognize themselves. My son, my father. Come, let me introduce you to my queen, Medea. But Medea has gone, and in her absence, her guilt is confirmed. We must go to the palace, says Aegeus, now. Tomorrow there will be time for wine drinking and boar hunting, and we shall visit an oracle, but tonight we must go to the palace. There will be trouble. They rush back to the palace, and on the steps of the palace they are greeted by Stephanos, the king's senior advisor. His face is ashen. What is it, Stephanos, says Aegeus. My lord, I have in my hand a letter from King Minos of Crete. Bum, 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 bum.
Ladies and gentlemen, will you please welcome back the second half of his world premiere of the Thesiad, Mr. Stephanos Hobbs.
Cue. There is a shameful secret in the house of Minos. That's King Minos to you. King Minos of Crete, founder of the Minoan civilization, builder of the great palace of Knossos, king of kings, and all the other kings of Greece bend the knee to him and send him annual tribute of olive oil, copper, and horses. Corinth, mighty Mycenae, proud Sparta, upstart Athens, they all bend the knee to him and send him tribute. And the Minoan civilization, the wonder of it, the sculpture, the literature festivals, the drama. But you are not interested in that, are you? You are here for the shameful secret, are you not?
Yeah.
Well,
Yes.
the shameful secret concerns King Minos' wife, Queen Pasiphae. Pasiphae has fallen in love with a bull. It starts innocently enough. She takes it cupcakes. She hangs daisy chains about its neck. But when she looks into its dark, chocolatey eyes, love turns to lust, and lust must be requited. We've all been there. Margaret has, I know. Lust must be requited. But I'm a fragrant lady. And the bull is very, well, how do I say this? The bull is very bull in the bull department. I think I've got a problem. Now, when there's a problem in Crete and you need to be discreet, who are you going to call? Daedalus. When there's a problem in Crete and you need to be discreet, who are you going to call? Daedalus. She calls Daedalus and invites him for a coffee at the Cafe Knossos. Oh, Mr. Daedalus, come in, come in. I'm in a bit of a predicament. And she explains, well, Daedalus is the Mr. Fix-It man of Crete, the go-to man, the man who has the king's ear. And now it would appear the queen's. He knows exactly what to do. Permit me, madam, he says. He takes her napkin and with a piece of charcoal, he draws the model of a beautiful cow in which there is a secret compartment where Pasiphae may hide herself to receive her lover, the bull. I can have that ready by tea time, my lady. Oh, tea time, Mr. Daedalus. Thank you so much. And at tea time, the model comes. It looks better than Pasiphae even imagined. Oh, Mr. Daedalus, this is wonderful. And where do I go? I sort of insinuate myself in here, do I? Oh, it's very snug in here, Mr. Daedalus. If you like to leave me now, I can take it from here. Mr. Bull, cooey, Mr. Bull. Well, you are going to have to use your own imaginations for what happened next. But there are grunts and groans and gasps and gush. And what I can say is that Pasiphae is very pleased. I'm exceedingly pleased. They do say that once you've had bull, there's no going back. It's wonderful. But I do hope he was a gentleman and took care of things. It couldn't happen, could it? No, of course not. But it does. And soon there's going to be the patter of tiny hooves. But it's a beautiful bouncing baby boy bull. It's a beautiful bouncing baby boy bull. What is it? A beautiful bouncing baby boy bull. It's 175.5 pounds. So what of Queen Pasiphae's pelvic floor? My pelvic floor is fat, but he's lovely. Look at him, he's lovely. He's got his daddy's eyes and his nose and his tail, but he's lovely. You just hold him. Oh my goodness, there's a problem. Now the problem is not what you think. It's not Minos being cuckolded. He's king of kings. I decide what's true around here. Besides, Pasiphae has explained it all to me. She loves me. Who would not love me, king of kings? It was a god that made her do it. She's seen the error of her ways. The grass isn't always greener on the other side. No, the problem is different. The problem is, let me explain, Minus, what the problem is. The problem is, what are we going to call the little chap? Where's he going to live? Now, when there's a problem in Crete and you need to be discreet, who are you going to call? Daedalus. They invite Daedalus for a cup of coffee at the Cafe Knossos. Of course, he knows what to do. Sire, he says, Madam, Minos, Tauros, we'll call the little chap the Minotaur. There's a couple of spare rooms at the palace. I'll put some panels in and it'll be fine. And for a couple of months, everything is fine. Everything's tickety-moo. And the little chap goes from milk to grass to human flesh. He catches a slave, kills it, and eats it. Minos is furious. You do not eat inventory. We've got a problem. And when there's a problem in Crete and you need to be discreet, who are you going to call?
Daedalus.
Invite Daedalus for another coffee at the Cafe Knossos. And of course, he has the solution. I'll put in a few more panels, sire. I'll make it so he can't get in or out. It'll be like a maze, a double maze, a labyrinth, a labyrinth. And the little chap's dietary requirements, well, you know, those kings send you horses. Why don't we change that to 7 young men and 7 young women? Excellent idea, says Minos. Daedalus, send the letter out. And the letter goes out to all the kings of Greece, to Corinth, to mighty Mycenae, to proud Sparta, to upstart Athens. And in Athens, the letter is opened by Stephanos. Stephanos is the king's senior advisor, one of his oldest friends, his praise singer. Stephanos is a distinguished man. His hair has the greyness of 60 winters, 65 winters. All right, 70 winters. His hair is the greyness of 70 winters. He opens the letter. His face is ashen. Then he sees the king. Stephanos, what is it? It's a letter from King Minos of Crete, my lord. Then read it, read it. Very well, my lord. Dear king, there has been a change to your service agreements, brackets, tribute. Instead of horses, please send 7 young men and 7 young women for bull leaping duties. Please note we are unable to return the aforesaid mentioned 7 young men and 7 young women. Yours sincerely, Customer Experience Manager, Minoan Power. Aegeus is horrified. I cannot deny this man. I cannot attack him. I am a small state. My friends will not join with me. What are we to do? But one thing, he says, I will not command my young men and young women to undertake this. We shall hold a ballot, and I shall let the fates decide their destiny. But Theseus, your name will not go into that ballot. Indeed, my lord, says Theseus, I will command the ship. What do you mean, command the ship? My lord, Minos has invited us to Crete. It would be rude not to go. We shall send an expedition of 1 ship, and I shall command that ship. But son, we've only just been reunited. We've not even been on a boar hunt together or drunk red wine. Plenty of time for that soon, father. But son, we haven't even been to an oracle together. My father, we will make our own destiny. Oh, very well, says Aegeus, but I shall be watching out for your return on a high cliff. Well, not me personally, you understand, but when you come back, change the black sails to white so that we know that you are safe, and we will start the celebrations, and I'll put a bull on the barbie. Very well, my father. And the ballot takes place, and then the 7 young men and the 7 young women, with Theseus at their head, make their way down to the harbour at Piraeus. This is a port town. Everybody knows what's going on. They all have somebody who works on ships, and they know about the Minotaur, they know about the labyrinth. They've heard it all in the grapevine. So they are there to see what is happening. And there's a big crowd chanting, "Theseus, Theseus, Theseus." And the quays are lined with people waving them off. "Bye, bye. Send me a postcard from Crete. Bye, bye. Bring me back a fridge magnet from the labyrinth." And one of those people watching is Stephanos. He sees the oars being unshipped and the black sail being unfurled and the ship sailing across the wine-dark sea for its meeting with destiny. But in Crete, there are no crowds to greet the ship. It's but another cargo ship. The harbour's full of cargo ships. But it is met by an armed guard. And leading the armed guard is Princess Ariadne. She's the king's eldest daughter, the high priestess of the labyrinth. She's there to check on the cargo. It says here, 7 young men and 7 young women. You've got to check yourself. Paperwork's got to be right. You can be cheated. She expects to find the 7 young men and 7 young women cowed and frightened and soiled, but they are not. They walk proudly up the quay. Ahead of them, there is a young man of such beauty. She's curious. She looks, and in that moment, their eyes connect. And without words, a contract is made. Help me, help me. And Ariadne knows what she must do. She takes a wineskin to her favourite friend, Daedalus, to ask about how to get in and out of the labyrinth. "I'm curious, Mr. Daedalus, that's all, I'm curious." Of course, he's flattered to tell her. "The secret, my dear, is this," and he shows her a ball of scarlet thread, which when rolled, shows the follower the way through the various passages. And then when you come out, you just follow it out. "Keep that one, my lady, keep that one. I have a spare one in my office." So she has the secret of how to get into the labyrinth. And she takes a dagger and she gives this to Theseus. She's the high priestess. There are no doors that are locked to her. And there are no words that need to be spoken. The contract has been made. Theseus has a dagger and he has a ball of scarlet thread. He is at the labyrinth. He rolls the ball along the ground and follows. It stops and turns left. The panels are rough and cold. It stops and turns right. Theseus follows, and then he begins to smell the Minotaur. It is the smell of man and bull 1,000 times. I can only describe it as the smell of Lynx aftershave for men. He's following the ball, and then it turns left. Beneath his feet, Theseus feels something. He reaches down, it's a severed hand. He notices that the walls are gouged and there are obscene stains. But he's watching the ball and following, and then it turns right again, and he hears the Minotaur. He knows he's close. Its breathing is deep and sonorous, and it fills the caverns. Theseus is following the ball. It stops and turns, and then the last few inches of the thread fall forward and point the way to the center of the labyrinth. And Theseus looks up, and in the flickering half-light, he sees a giant creature, half man, half bull. It's the Minotaur. It has fallen asleep over a bloody corpse. Theseus moves forward. He hears the words of Heracles in his ear. A small man may topple a mighty one. He places the dagger behind the bull's ear and pushes hard. It strikes a bone. He pushes with both hands, and his hand is then covered with hot, sticky blood. The Minotaur's eyes are awake. It's enraged, but there are no words spoken between them, just sounds. There are grunts and groans and gasps and gushes, and soon the light leaves the Minotaur's eyes. And Theseus's head is filled with such a roar, and his mouth is filled with a taste of iron. And when he pulls the dagger out, he whispers to the Minotaur, and now, you are in my story. He turns. His body is hot and sticky. The blood on his hands are brushed against the side walls, but he is looking down at the scarlet thread, and he is just blindly following this scarlet thread till the beginning of the labyrinth. There are people there, but what do they see? They see a half-crazed man covered in black gore, holding a dagger. Nobody waits to see what he is doing. And soon he has released his people, and he is down to the harbour, and Ariadne is there, and the oars are unshipped, and the black sail is unfurled, and the wine-dark sea to Athens beckons. But the winds are against them, and they have to stop at Naxos. They are so tired. No one has the energy to make a fire or to make food. They all fall asleep on the beach. Theseus in the arms of Ariadne. And in his sleep, a voice comes to him. Your father needs your help. Hurry back to Athens. Leave Ariadne. Leave Ariadne. He cannot recognize the voice, but it speaks with great authority, and he feels compelled to agree. Quietly, the ship leaves Naxos. The oars are unshipped, and the black sail is unfurled. And across the wine-dark sea, the ship makes its way to Athens. It's spotted on a high cliff. Ship ahoy! Ship ahoy! Aegeus hears this and runs up to the cliff top. What is it? What is the sail? The sail it's a black sail, my lord. A black sail. Theseus is dead. Pallas will come with his 50 sons. And in his great grief, Aegeus throws himself from the cliff into the sea. In the harbour, Theseus expects there to be a great crowd, but there is no one. There is a single person waiting. It is Stephanos. But there is a great lamentation in the city. Stephanos greets him. The king is dead. Long live the king. The king is dead. Stephanos looks up at the black sail, and Theseus understands immediately. Take me to my father. I must honor his body. No. If you honor his body, the wolves will be eating 2 bodies ere nightfall. Pallas and his 50 sons are about. Now is a different time. You need to honor your father's crown. Here is his sword. Today, my lord, my king, today is the day of the sword. And Theseus clips the sword on, and today is indeed the day of the sword. And it is a long day. And the day turns into weeks, and the weeks into months, and the months into years, until finally King Pallas and his 50 sons are dead, their mouths stuffed with dust. But Theseus is not the Theseus you remember. You might remember him as that handsome, muscled young man from those beautiful Athenian vases, the man with that little sharp phallus. You did notice, didn't you? I know you did. No, the years have not been kind to him. And his sword, which once danced to his will, now holds heavy by his side, and his body is racked with pain. He drops the sword to the dust. Enough! Enough! Stephanos, look at my hands. I cannot even break my own bread. Children run from me in the marketplace. And only yesterday a blind beggar threw away my coin. He cursed me. He said I smelt of death. I need to cleanse myself of this feast of blood, this grievous groaning of men. Stephanos, find me a place of exile. And here is Theseus, no longer king of the Athenians, exiled to the island of Skyros. He's been greeted by the king, King Lycomedes. My lord king, says Lycomedes, my island is your island. My people are your people. Welcome to Skyros. The party he welcomes is a small one. Just Theseus and Stephanos Stephanos' man. Come, my lord, I shall take you to your quarters. At the foot of the cliff there is a rough shepherd's hut. Lycomedes turns to Hegeus. This is for Stephanos and his man. Your quarters are on the top of the cliff if you'd like to follow me. And all three follow Lycomedes, and Lycomedes has been most generous. He has given Theseus his finest palace. It has a wonderful courtyard. Look about you, my lord. There's a fine view of the sea, and here you may stand and receive the evening breeze off the Aegean Sea, as we now must call it, in honor of your father. Welcome to Skyros. It is a poor island, but we are rich in heart and we are rich in generosity. We are known for our wine. People say that it is horse piss, but that is only the first cup. After that, it is a fit for the gods. Dionysus himself would drink our wine. But we have poor entertainment here. If you're hoping to go on a boar hunt or to visit oracles, I'm sorry, my lord, we have none on this island. We are rich in stone and wine, and others have what we lack. If you wish to party, then 100 miles south is Mykonos. And if your tastes are a little more exotic, then 85 miles east, you will find the island of Lesbos. But here we are simple people, and we are very pleased to meet you. Tomorrow, all the islanders wish to meet the great hero Theseus, king of Athens. So, my lord, tonight I will leave you, and I will see you in the morning. The three men watch Lycomedes go down the cliff. They sit and they open the wineskin. They drink. Theseus turns to Stephanos. I think Lycomedes will kill me. Lycomedes kill you? Why would he do that? Well, when a king has a problem and that problem is a man, that man has to be killed. But what if that man has brothers and uncles and sons and friends? Then you will have to kill a great number of men, which you cannot always do. So my enemies will come for me. They will come for me. And they come for me, they will also take the island. Because where there is an island, there is also a king. And there are more men in Greece who wish to be king than there are islands in the Aegean Sea. And as you know, there are a great many islands in the Aegean Sea. No, Lycomedes would kill me. If I were Lycomedes and he were Theseus, I would kill him. Stephanos is appalled. My lord, Lycomedes was one of 50 kings who offered you exile. Your presence does great honor to him. Your death will bring him nothing but dishonor. I have looked into his heart. You are safe here. You are safe to be cleansed. You must trust me, my lord. Very well. And Stephanos means crown, does it not? It does, my lord. You have no ambitions of your own, my lord. My father was a common soldier, my mother a hairdresser. The only ambition I have is for the crown at the great Dionysia festival, the great literature festival. And I hope to take a story to it. It is a little rough at the moment, but if you would like to hear it, that would help me. What is this story called? It's called the Thesiad, my lord. It is the story of Theseus, the greatest king of Athens. Thesiad, like the Iliad. Indeed, my lord. I would like to hear this story, says Theseus. It will help me sleep. And Theseus sits and listens while Stephanos tells the story. A story of kings and power and prophecy. The story of a young man who has to seek out his name and claim his birthright. A man who does this against the most appalling odds. A man who must kill the Minotaur in bloody combat in the horrors of the labyrinth. A man who must go to the very gates of the underworld himself and triumph. A man who must bring his city to greatness. A man who finds the city a city of goat shit, but leaves it a city that dreams in marble. This, my lord, is the story of Theseus, the greatest of the Athenian kings. This, my lord, is the Thesiad. Theseus applauds him. Stephanos, a fine story, a fine story. And now we have another Heracles. I would like to meet this Theseus, because I would tell him that, well, the fight with the Minotaur was not quite as he says. It was more of an execution and less of a fight. And the visit to the underworld, well, that was a foolish jape. It was Pirithous and me, 2 wineskins, I believe, were responsible for that. In our piety, we decided, impious that we were worthy of marrying daughters of Zeus. I chose Helen of Sparta, the most beautiful woman in Greece. I stole her from her father. She was a girl then. I took her to my mother and asked her to look after Helen until she was of marriageable age. Then I went with Pirithous. He chose Persephone, niece and wife of Hades. That did not end well. I was lucky to escape with my life. Pirithous did not escape with his. And when I got back to Troezen, Helen had gone. Her brothers had reclaimed her. They also took my mother with her as her slave. And when Helen went to Sparta as Menelaus's wife, my mother went as her slave. And when the Lord Paris stole her heart and took Helen back to Troy, my mother went with her as her slave. And for 10 long years at Troy, my mother was Helen's slave. And when Troy burned, my mother stood in the slave pens, waiting to be sold to the common soldiers. And it was only a distant kinsman who recognized her and was able to buy her and save her from this awful fate. And he brought her back to Athens, but on the journey she died of grief. I am responsible for that. So, storyteller, I ask you, is this what storytellers do? They hide the truth, they change it? My lord, says Stephanos, storytellers find the truth, although we do try to make it interesting. May I speak plainly? Every day, for most people, is a battle. There is working and there is eating. There is shitting and there is working and there is sleeping. But a story can help to make that bearable, to give some point to that. And there's not a person, not a man or a woman or a child in this world who does not desire there to be a scarlet thread that runs through their lives, that connects them with those who came before and those who are going to come afterwards. We cannot all be Theseus or Heracles, but maybe, just maybe, perhaps just for one day, a man can be a hero to his own family. The storyteller is the person who does that, my lord. Theseus smiles and applauds. Stephanos, I award you the crown. I think that is excellent. But there is something about your story. May I ask further? Indeed, my lord. There was very little about Medea in that story, Aegeus' wife. After she was exiled from Athens, she went north to Colchis. Jason and the Argonauts, she helped with the Golden Fleece. She killed her children. There's no mention of that in your story. Stephanos smiles. My lord, there is always another story. I leave Medea's story to the dramatists. That new one, that young one, what do they call him? Euripides. Let Euripides ask the question, what do you do with a problem like Medea? Another crown, I think, to you there. But there's one final thing that troubles me about your story. While you were telling it, your man over there was writing something down. That is most unusual. Storytellers do not write things down, I do not think. No, my lord, storytellers do not write things down, but Plutarch, and that is his name, he's an educated man, and he had the temerity and the nerve to suggest to me that as I am nearly 70 years old, that soon my stories will pass away with me, and that I might have one or two that are worth keeping. And he has asked me to write down with him the Thesiad, and this is what we are doing. Stephanos, you're a fool. In 3,000 years from now, when people hear the Thesiad, it will be the Thesiad of Plutarch, not the Thesiad of Stephanos. My lord, you misunderstand the storyteller. I care not whether it's the Thesiad of Stephanos or the Thesiad of Plutarch. The story belongs to the person who hears it, and the story will always be the story of Theseus. Stephanos, I have run out of crowns to give you, and your honey words have convinced me. Now, tomorrow, tell me what I must do tomorrow. My lord, tomorrow will be a very ordinary day for you, but it will be a very special day for all the people on Skyros. They have been looking forward to meeting the great Theseus, the great hero of our world, and they will look back on tomorrow and they will tell their grandchildren how you looked and what you said and the fact that you shook their hands. And Stephanos, help me out. What will I say to these people? My lord, you will smile, you will shake their hand, and you will say, and what do you do? Very well. So an early start tomorrow. So wine with water tonight, my lord. I leave you to your wine and your water. Plutarch and I have some work to do on the Thesiad, and I shall come for you in dawn, and we shall walk out with Lycomedes, and we shall have a wonderful day tomorrow. Theseus watches as they walk down the cliff. He waves to them. Stephanos, the Thesiad of Plutarch. Stephanos waves back. I have earned a drink. And he does pour some wine and water with it. And he sips it, and as he sips it, the courtyard is filled with a great flashing light, so bright that he has to close his eyes. He cannot see. He prostrates himself on the ground. He knows what this means. This means the presence of a god, and he bends down to await his retribution. Will it be a thunderstorm? Will it be a great wave? Will it be a shake of the earth's core? He waits for his retribution, but nothing comes. He opens his eyes and looks up, and now he can see. He is mistaken. It is not a god. It is a goddess. She is tall and beautiful, and her hair is piled upon her head and held up with gold clasps. Her breasts are bare in the Cretan manner, and she is smiling. Theseus, king of the Athenians, she says, I am the goddess Ariadne, and my lord is the god Dionysos. She is accompanied by a panther and a lynx. You will remember me as the princess Ariadne, daughter of King Minos of Crete. You abandoned me at Naxos. I hoped to awaken your arms, but I awoke to nothing. You had gone. I called out, hello, 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 but there was no answer. And for 3 days, my salt tears fell into the sand. But on the 4th day, a passing God took pity on me. He comforted me. He spoke to me. He brought me refreshment. He spoke to me, and then he promised me lawful marriage. He even went to his father, divine Zeus, to have me made immortal so that we could live together forever. And now my lord Dionysus has promised me that our children will fill the night sky. Look up, there is so much room. There will be a Beyonce, and there will be Blake, and there will be Lynette and Deepa and Gail, and Phil will be over there. There will be many. So I have not come to curse you. I have come to thank you. But I need to warn you, Theseus, king of the Athenians, that even as we speak, the strands of your life are being gathered together. And there is a pair of shears being held up. Farewell, Theseus, king of the Athenians. And slowly the goddess Ariadne disappears from sight. The goddess Ariadne addresses me as King Theseus, king of the Athenians. But I have heard so many godlike voices in my ear. Hurry back to Athens, your father has need of you. Leave Ariadne. Who was that? Was that my godfather Poseidon wanting me to be king over my earth father Aegeus? Or was it the god Dionysus himself who merely wanted Ariadne for himself? These gods, they treat us like playthings. We are wretched creatures. We are wretched creatures. And they taunt us with their prophecies. Do not open the bulging mouth of the wineskin until you reach the heights of Athens, lest you die of grief. There has been too much grief. I brought my mother nothing but grief when I should have been bringing her grandchildren. But I see her smile. I hear her voice. She speaks. Come, my Theseus, your father and I await. And I know that I have but to make a single step to feel her warm embrace about my neck. But a single step. It is Stephanos who finds Theseus's body next morning at the foot of the cliff, his bones broken by the stones of Skyros. And it is Stephanos who places a small coin in his mouth so that Theseus may pay the ferryman on his journey to the next world. And it is Stephanos who stands next to him and raises his arms to sing the paean. Sing to me, muse of Theseus, king of the Athenians. Summon up his fathers to come and take him home. And as Stephanos stands there, the waves come higher and higher up the beach. Theseus! Theseus! Theseus!
Wow. Thank you very much, Stephen. That was, in the words of Theseus himself, a fine story. That was fantastic. I boggle at how much work has gone into that. You must be feeling very pleased with it. But I know there are going to be some questions and answers in a few minutes, so I'll let Terry hold that. But just first of all, you will be aware, everyone listening, that of course one of the things with the Greek myths is that there are so many versions, and each island has its own version of different parts of the story, and they all come together in subtly different ways. So there's no just one version that's the right version. And I think that tonight Stephen has proved that there has been discovered a new island, the island of something like Meltios Kinios or something, where they have their own tradition, which he has discovered. That was brilliant. A world premiere, well worth having. Thank you very much indeed for sharing it with Stephen. Thank you, Terry, for suggesting the idea. It's been an honour to share hosting it with Stony Tellers. Another round of applause for Stephen, and then over to Terry to host some questions and answers.
Thank you.
Yes, good evening. So we realised when we were in the rehearsal process of this that it is quite difficult for audiences to give feedback via Zoom. We did try to keep as many people unmuted as possible. If I was, I'm quite lucky that I'm able to identify where sounds are coming from. So when we were getting feedback or sort of any background noise, I did sort of mute people throughout, but I tried to keep most people on so that they could give audio feedback to Steve, but also it's difficult because you can't see everybody. So we thought that instead what we would do is do a bit of questions and answers, and so in this way you can ask any questions of Steve about the story or the process, or you can just make some comments which will also be gratefully received. If you can't do audio for whatever reason, if you want to put it in the chat, then we can also read that out. So we won't take up the rest of your evening with all of this, but we'll do a few, and hopefully that way Steve can then get that feedback that he didn't get through the performance via Zoom. So he'll appreciate that, you know, you were all listening. So this is the time for your spot quiz, and anybody getting less than about 10, well, yeah, you'll be thrown out of Skiros.
All the scores, Terry, will be moderated upwards. That's what
I will be comparing them with the storytelling club results of previous years. Have the algorithms.
I've got one.
Richard, over to you then.
Other than once again saying that was really tremendous, thank you very much. I have heard various episodes of that in the past, and just like those different myths that come from, or different versions of myths from the different islands, I'm aware that you have sort of altered various ones. How many versions have you sort of got through before you got to that?
It's a huge process. It starts with Robert Graves's Greek myths, because he tells it straight and then gives you all the different variants. And there's a similar process at work in this country with folktales. Every town claims Dick Turpin, and that's what it is. It's each town trying to get in on it and saying, did you know his auntie came from here? We knew this. So every island wants to claim a little bit of the Theseus story. So you get this mishmash. So it's just a question of picking in amongst it to find the ones you want to go for. And it does evolve. I started off with quite a different Theseus because it was much shorter. My hero was Minos, and the shenanigans going on in there. But in 10-15 minutes, if you want to expand that, you have to have a much broader story. You have to have characters which everybody can understand, and you have to have a clear motivation, and you have to, as Terry would say, you have to love the main character. So you have to look in to see what his motivations are, rather than just say he behaved badly. You have to see why he did that. You know, how much choice did he really have? So I would hope that there are parallels to that in other myths and how people behave. People are put in awful situations, and they're either crushed by it or they survive and they move on. But there are wonderful bits and pieces all around. You would think that the Greek myths are done and dusted, but people are still doing them. I mean, there have been some fantastic books out recently. I mean, the Stephen Fry ones are straightforward. Natalie Haynes has done, there's been at least 3 feminist retellings. The one I would say is the best I've read since Mary Renault, and Mary Renault is my hero. I read all of hers. Is Madeline Miller, who wrote one called Circe. It is the most amazing book, entirely believable and just brilliantly written. So when you read something like that, you want what you do to be a little bit as good as that. So that's what you strive for.
Do you go and visit these islands in Greece to get? I mean, I know there's lockdown at the moment, but you know, in the past, in your lifetime, have you actually sort of been to Greece to try and get the flavour of the story and everything, or is this all your imagination and just what you read from other books?
Well, I'm fortunate that I have a friend called Phil Chippendale who's been to Skyros. Now, he's been to Skyros, so I know. And I've read Mary Renault. I don't need to go to ancient Greece. I've read Mary Renault.
Yeah, she's great. Great.
And what you have to have is a story that people will believe anywhere in the world. You could set a similar story in Stony Stratford, and if you, why not? Why not?
Yes, indeed. I was just having visions of the Minotaur coming thundering down the main. That's right. The bull and the anyway.
There is a Minotaur in Stony Stratford.
Yeah, you've been here on a Saturday night that we have seen a few.
We won't talk about the other pub just now.
The key element to all of these, and Terry needs to close her ears now because it's embarrassing, is to have somebody who can just listen and be objective about it and channel the story in different ways rather than just enjoy the story, to say, hang on a minute, what are you doing here? Why are you doing that? What are you missing here? And the process has not been easy. Terry has put a mirror up to the story I had before, and I realized in many ways, although it was successful episodically, it didn't actually have an entity running through it. So that has been the difficulty, having a story that is not just 15 bits bolted on, which is what I thought it was originally. Oh, I've done 15, I can add another 15. And Terry was saying, hang on a minute, this is just 15 plus 15 plus 15. There isn't an overarching story here. What's running through? Where's the structure in this story? When people ask you that, your heart drops, because that means hard work. And you've got to go back to basics. So having somebody like Terry around who can take that, who can be dispassionate about it, but still love the story, has been more than I can say more. So I'd like to thank Terry for that. And that's what spurs you on, where you have somebody who believes in the story, so you want it to be as good as you can possibly make it. And that is a slow process. And I'd like to think, Greek, oh yes, right. Every culture in the world has its own mythology, and it's getting under the skin of it. I doubt whether I would have the ability to get under the skin of other cultures, but as I say, ever since I've been able to read, I've been reading about the Greek myths, and it's, I mean, for example, I confess I've got two useless O levels: Greek literature and translation and Greek Roman literature and translation. I've also got a useless A level in ancient Greek history. So I loved it. It was pointless, no use to me, but it was something I wanted to do because I had that connection. Even though I'd love to go to Greece. Would I be disappointed? I don't know. I would like to, obviously. In comfort. I wouldn't want to go walking around in all the goat shit.
I think it's easy enough to get there, actually, to be honest. You know, but, except this year.
Yes.
One of the things that interested me was the way you kept the pace up. Do you find that very difficult? You know, you've got to remember the story and everything, but you help us with telling the story in the way you do. The pacing of the story helps us sort of get from one idea to the next.
I
So do you sort of do you work on that, or does that just come naturally?
nothing comes naturally. You work on all of this.
Yeah.
You start.
I am
you
in total admiration because
Well,
I can't
you-
imagine why you've done this.
Well, you start with a single journey, and the single step you can do is, and again, Terry, cover up your ears, take a Terry course. Start with a day one, and she will tell you. I mean, if I have not heard Terry say pace, pace, pace once, I've heard it 1,000 times, and it's that.
I think the pace is brilliant, so I don't know what Terry thinks.
I'm very, very proud. He gets a gold star tonight. He does indeed.
Red wine.
Yes, indeed. Let's another round of applause.
Actually, listening to something, just listening and not having a visual sort of comic-like story type of thing, just using your ears and listening to something and being able to get a whole story out of it and have your mind making pictures, is a tremendous thing. It's, you've done a brilliant job tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Well, you need to get yourself to storytelling at the Feast of Fools up at Delapre Abbey, where you will meet the most amazing storytellers. I have been there and been in awe of people. And these are people who spend their lives doing it. This is everything they do. And that comes out. And when you hear people like Ben Haggerty, you think, goodness me, where did that come from? And that comes from hard graft and loving the subject. And we all want a bit of that. But at the end of the day, what's important, and I don't say this to score points, it's the important thing is the audience. There are lots of storytellers, there are not many audiences. If you've got an audience who will listen to a story, that is pure gold. And when you have that, that is so precious. And when you have that, that makes you want to go out and bring other stories in. And this is why with Richard and Terry with Storytellers, and with Lynette, Tales Tattled and Told, you want to bring stories out, and they've existed for thousands of years for a very good reason. People have loved them, and they are separate from what's going on in the world, but still part of it. And it is bringing people in, without all the gizmos and the flashing lights. And it's just a voice and somebody listening. And it's been like that for thousands of years. It's lovely to be able to recreate that. But it is happening.
So I'm just going to be conscious of time, so we've got time for another couple of questions. So has anybody else got any questions or comments that they would like to put to Steve?
Is Dave still there?
Yes, I'm just saying, comment from me, please, Steve. Congratulations, that was hugely impressive, my man. What I love is the way that you can include superb imagery, but your language skills are superb as well. And when you include jokes and contemporary, we get carried along with that.
Yeah.
And that is a superb skill to have. It doesn't cut across the flow. So
I hope you enjoyed the puns there.
Oh, I did.
I should have a checklist to make sure you got them all.
No,
did you enjoy the meet and Greek?
I enjoyed lots that were in your written publicity, as well as what happened tonight.
And there was another one, which was Terry's, and I'm not going to claim that one, and that is all the tale tellers were going off to the great oracle of Delapre.
Yes,
not Delphi.
Yeah.
That was a Howieism, and there's lots more in there. So I'm very grateful for Terry for saying, "Oh, what about this? What about that?" And Lynx aftershave. Lynx was one of the creatures that Dionysus was seen with, and I hadn't realised that.
Oh,
There was a brand of lynx called Lynx Apollo as well. And there was lots of different lynx with the lynx. My favourite one was Tickety Moo. I like that every time. That made me laugh. So, one more comment or question from anyone? We've just about got time for one more. Mark.
It's more a comment than a question. Towards the end, there was a tone of almost of of the storyteller saying farewell, wasn't there? There was a few minutes where it felt like you were sort of saying goodbye, you know, passing the stories on and so on. I thought that was kind of a little bit too soon for that tape, but anyway. But that's the only comment I have to make. I loved it. I really did enjoy it a lot. But yeah, you went sideways and almost said goodbye for a few moments.
Worried me a bit.
I think that's just read my storytelling chapter for my thesis. I think he'd just given up on life after having to go through 61 pages just for that chapter alone.
But I'd like to think that I mounted a defence of storytelling there. That's what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Not to say, people say, oh, you're making up, you're just telling lies. There is a greater thing. Unfortunately, I was telling Terry that when Dominic Cummings is recruiting these new people he wants, he says they must be able to tell stories, and it rather demeans that somehow the storytellers, it's about pulling the wool over people's eyes and fooling people. I don't see it like that. No. I see it as showing the truth rather than it being hijacked for this public relations point of view. And I think we've got to stand up and fight. And I like to think I've done a little bit as a defense of storytelling. I think storytelling has got to defend itself. You know, it's got to be robust.
No, I agree with Steve. I agree with absolutely everything you said. It was just the slight valedictory tone. That was my only slight caveat, if you will. Well, you don't need to do the farewells quite yet.
If you've ever been to Scribal Gathering, he does them about once a year. So
okay.
Reminds me of Groucho
several times.
Yeah, reminds me of Groucho Marx. You know, I must be going. You know that song he sings. You know, I'll stay a day or two, so you know, a year, or two, but I must be going. You know. Anyway, so it was my.
It was a brilliant evening. Brilliant.
Excellent, Lynn. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Steve.
Well done.
Very.
And I think on that note, and as all agreeing wholeheartedly with what a brilliant evening it was, and with just how much hard work Steve has put in to get there. I mean, I know I've been meeting with him once a week, but there was long before that, there was already a lot of work gone into it. So tonight, Steve, this is a real pinnacle, a milestone in your storytelling journey. So be really very proud of yourself. I think we can all here say that we thoroughly enjoyed it. So for one last time, ladies and gentlemen, I shall ask you to give our storyteller Stephen Hobbs telling his Thesiad a huge round of applause.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you for being such an attentive audience. The flapjacks are on me.